Hey guys. All right. Book number 5. Self-sufficient backyard. There we go. And this is on Homestead Layout. The layout of your homestead will, to a large extent, depend on the answers to the above questions as well as the assets your property has to offer. If it is purely a chunk of land with no driveway or old buildings, I'd suggest walking it thoroughly to get a good idea of the lay of the land. Hopefully you did that to some extent before buying it, but now is the time to really access your purchase and determine how best to convert the land into the garden of your dreams. In your head, make mental notes, or better yet, draw a map showing the property where the property lines are. It doesn't need to be to scale. Zoning regulations will require certain elements to be set back from any property lines, so you'll need to know where your lines are. It's imperative that you are browsing your own property, and marked property lines will confirm that. If the lines are not well marked, a surveyor can delineate the property for you. Thinking about that, I may have to move the orchard back towards the trailer and the new house area closer, because it's not going to be able to be like just on the inside of the ditch line. Because I think stuff like that has to be 100 feet at least from the road. So I'm going to have to move that back further. Surveyors are very costly. In the past, I've made deals with them to save money. I am comfortable with a chainsaw and axe. As a suggestion, you might be able to save a pile of money by having a surveyor put in corner pins and simply flag the lines for you. Then it would be your responsibility to clear and blaze them with an axe and paint. Ask the surveyor to show you the proper way to blaze and mark trees, since there is a definite method. Leave the surveyor's flagging up, since that is proof of their work. Indicate on your map where water in the form of ponds, streams, and/or bogs are located. Where are the low spots that might be prone to flooding? Are there any knolls or high ground? Where is it practical to clear the ground of trees and stumps for an orchard and garden? Or maybe there's already a nice clearing or relatively open spot for these areas as well as the house. If there's no existing driveway, don't forget to draw its proposed route on your map. And I haven't really thought about that one. I mean, I've kind of just basically figured we'll just use this driveway up here, but in essence, you are trying to mentally map out where all the elements of your new homestead will go. Your rough map will simply show where the proposed house and driveway will go in relation to the property lines. It should indicate the likely spot for the garden and orchard if you plan on having one. As a well laid out homestead is one that is practical and matches what is being envisioned. A good game plan will also allow for future inevitable expansion, such as when you are having so much fun you wish to make the garden or orchard bigger. Well, we have to kind of be careful with that because we're only on 5 acres, so. Animals are no different than people in that they like to be outdoors. Map out where the barn and appropriate sized pens or pasture might be placed. Pasture and hay fields can be farther away from the house since these areas aren't usually visited daily. Map out the route that a farm tractor, four-wheeler, or other conveyance will take to access all parts of the property. Note where fences would likely be placed, as well as the best placement for gates. So when you've come up with a long-term game plan for your perfect homestead, you've made the big purchase of property, the site has been mapped, and now it's time for the nitty-gritty. Here are some generalities for your consideration. If at all possible, I would situate the house so that the living areas face south. Why? Admitting natural light to the living room, dining area, and kitchen makes for a brighter home. Helps combat seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, and may mean needing artificial light for fewer hours in the day. A plus for any off-grid home. Having large picture windows that face south guarantee all of the above. Not to remember that. 2 other positives. In winter, You will gain a great deal of heat from solar radiation on sunny days, and come spring, you will have full sunny windowsills for your garden seedlings. At the main homestead, the living room picture window faced west. A major mistake. The house was rather dark even on sunny days, and our garden seedlings weren't the best. At our wilderness home in Saskatchewan, the house windowsills were wide enough to put plant trays on. 2 of those windows were large, south-facing picture windows. The difference in the brightness of the living spaces was dramatic, as was the quality of our seedlings. Now, I'll have to remember that. So, south-facing windows. Once you've determined the location of your house, placement of other items becomes a little easier. If either garden or orchard are far removed from the house, they are out of sight and out of mind, and you will likely not care for them as well as you need to for good results. Therefore, I would definitely try to locate both of these, but especially the garden, as close to the house as possible, since you should be visiting it daily, and that's why I've got the garden right there next to the house. Any garden, orchard, hayfield, or field in which crops will be planted, you will need to have a sunny, well-drained site with good soil. I would suggest keeping the best soil site for the garden, since that will provide the bulk of the family's food. With the orchard relatively close to the house, you can keep an eye out for bug infestations and spray accordingly. And there are lots of different homemade sprays you can make to control the pests. Ideally, the orchard site should be protected from winds on the north and west sides. Avoid frost pockets. Remember, cold air sinks. And most importantly, be well drained. I learned that the hard way. My main orchard was in a wet spot in the spring. It was often flooded. Shallow-rooted berry plants didn't suffer much, but my trees did. I suspect many of them died from drowning. Solar panels will require a south-facing shade tree area. Solar panels will require a south-facing shade-free area throughout the day. You would be amazed how much a tree or other shadow adversely affects solar charging. Likewise, a greenhouse should be south-facing. As with a garden and orchard, try to place this near the house for convenience. Proximity to a water source is a consideration too, since you will have to water the plantings periodically. If you are going to rely on a spring house for refrigeration, you'll want to have that somewhat handy to the house. If you plan to store food in a root cellar, it will be under the house. Will it be under the house, or will it be in a separate entity outside? If you have a hill to burrow into, that would be a good spot for an outside cellar. A cellar under the house is more convenient than one outside, but only if the ground is suitable to put a cellar under the house. If your water table is high and under the house, basement-type cellar might not be the best choice due to flooding. Depending on your desire for animals, give consideration to the location of the barn or chicken coop in relation to the house. You will be making many daily trips to the barn, so you want it located close enough for easy access. You will be collecting eggs, feeding the animals, and hauling water to them, not just on fair weather days, but through the snow and rain too. Animals make copious quantities of waste byproducts that will need to be shoveled out and occasionally dealt with. I would want any outhouse, leach field, or animal waste compost bins situated a safe distance from my well. I would defer to the local building codes for your area on what distance needs to be. Please welcome back your judges. But 100 feet is a good starting point. Safe drinking water is the priority here. Bear in mind, a narrow, barely flowing, meandering stream near the proposed home site can become a raging threat during spring runoff or an abnormal rain event. Site the buildings accordingly and have an escape plan if waters rise to dangerous levels. Good idea, especially in some states. By the same token, the opposite extreme can occur. That peaceful wooded setting can become a raging forest fire during dry conditions, so having a buffer between the buildings and the forest is a must as an escape plan. Distance from the house to any outbuilding should be a safe span, so in the event either the house or an outbuilding is to catch fire, the whole homestead does not burn down. Any woodshed should face south if possible so it can get sun and summer breezes to dry the wood in preparation for the heating season. Try to situate it close to the entrance, most likely to be used for bringing in the wood. No point lugging firewood any further than necessary. Finally, let me tell you about another mistake I made early on in my homesteading career. At my first homestead in Maine, I hired a bulldozer to reclaim an old woods road and overgrown potato field. The field was 4 acres in size and was destined to be my home site. This old potato field was a jungle of Adler, young poplar, spruce, and fir. The bulldozer dropped its blade and set to work dozing all the growth into one humongous pile in the center of the field. That seemed like a good idea at the time, but what actually occurred was that along with all the tree and root material, the dozer blade skimmed off the best topsoil and put it in that pile too. Oops. My plan was to burn the wood material and quickly recover my field. What really happened is the woody mass was so full of dirt it could never burn. It took me years to cut the debris into firewood and slowly work my way through that pile. Then it took me more years to rebuild the soil into something I could work with. What a colossal mistake. Instead of using the blade, a grubbing attachment called a root rake would have been more appropriate for the job. That implement would have been able to root out the trees while leaving most of the topsoil behind. It would also have been able to roll the pile along as it pushed it into the center of my field, thereby giving the soil a chance to drop off. Here in Nova Scotia, an excavator with a thumb was used to recover the road and help with orchard and garden clearing. The thumb is a mechanical clamp that can be used to grab a rock or tree and rip it out by the roots. So the majority of soil is left where it belongs. The excavator with thumb is the best way I know to root around in the garden for boulders. Break thick mats of sod, pull tree stumps, and clear ground while leaving topsoil behind. I hope our hard-learned lessons will prove of value to you. Now, you always want to keep that topsoil. Whether you live in a city apartment, have a small backyard, or have 200 acres available to play with, Johanna and I will try to make relevant suggestions throughout our book to address as many situations as possible. And that was it for the Homestead Layout, and that was it for Chapter 3. Chapter 4 in the self-sufficient backyard goes into road building. So that one's going to be kind of interesting. And that one's just going to be one straight video because there's no subtitles in that one. So anyway, there we go, and that's it on the Homestead Layout for the self-sufficient backyard. And I will get this up there, and I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys remember to do your research and check your subscriptions. Share these videos with all your friends and on all your platforms. And make sure you like the videos. And don't forget to do your research, you guys. And make sure you check your subscriptions. Always check your subscriptions. Hit that notification bell and click on all to make sure you get all the notifications. And I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.